From the crossroads of the Ozarks, it's PID Radio. Welcome, I'm Derek Gilbert.
I am Sharon Gilbert, and we're coming to you from the barn, which sits just behind the little blue house. Yeah. Our house is blue.
It is,
mostly.
It is a total house makeover is the way it looks. Thank you, Mike Ward. You know what you've done. Christ-Powered Construction, David James, and
his, partner, Dave, who's there, been helping out, his helper. The two Daves.
Yes. It is really an amazing thing. New siding and the windows, which we were living with in the house, but the windows were getting really cranky and crotchety.
Some wouldn't open at all.
Yeah. It's not, the home is not that old. It was built around 2006, but it's a manufactured home. Mm-hmm. And the fixtures in the house, even though the bones were
reasonable.
Well built.
Interior on the inside looks beautiful.
Yeah, it does. And really some nice high-end touches on the inside, but the fixtures, like the windows and so on, basic, starter grade, not an upgrade. So we are definitely getting an upgrade now on these windows, and would not have done it had they. Well, I mean, they were gifted to us, so
they were. So thank you, and thank you to all of you who've helped out with the barn.
Yes,
and your encouragement and faithfulness. You guys, you don't know what all of that means to us. Your prayers, your encouragement, and your financial undergirding. I mean, we would not have been able to do any of this.
That's absolutely true. Tom Horn, the late Tom Horn, encouraged us years ago, almost 20 years ago now, by telling us that we had a ministry. And I laughed because I thought he was delusional. But he saw something in us. The Lord showed him something. I don't know, but it was clear that he had more faith in us than I did at the time, frankly, and faith in the Lord that He would provide, and He has most certainly done so.
Well, He also said you have a congregation, which
yes
did make us both laugh, because I saw what we were doing was ministry, but didn't really see ourselves as pastoring a congregation.
No,
and yet that's what He told us we were doing.
Mm-hmm.
No, we don't call ourselves Pastor Derek and Pastor Sharon, but we are in many ways, and I pray we don't mislead you, but we have an international congregation that you mean the world to us.
And it is very touching. I mean, I think that's one of the reasons the trip to Israel back in May was so powerful. Yeah. Even though it was a small group, we've had larger groups go with us in the past, but at a time of relative peace and safety, that's one thing. But here you've got a group of 7 people from 3 continents willing to travel into Israel while Israel is conducting military operations in the south and still coming under fire from the north, because we said, this is something we'd like to do. Would you care to join us? And so that was really heartfelt and touching. Now, it doesn't require that level of commitment. Again, your prayers for us are very much appreciated.
Absolutely.
And I can tell you that friends of ours have really had to undergo some trials over the past couple of years. Some to the point where, say with the late Tom Horn, late Dr. Michael Heiser, others who we've lost along the way, Chris Putnam, Rob Skiba, so on. There are some who have had to endure far more than what we've had to experience. So we are certainly not. And I guess what I'm trying to say is, I think we've been spared a lot of that, either because the Lord knows we couldn't handle it, but also because of the prayer covering.
That's what I think too.
So I think there's a lot to be said for that.
Does it mean that we are being protected for that because we're extra special?
No. I think the protection is, hey, you've got work to do. Suck it up, Buttercup.
Well, I think so too. And yeah, you and I have gone through a few things. I mean, but I'll be honest. It's like, well, this isn't anything. Your mother is declining constantly, and yeah, I know you deal with that, and it's very difficult. Many of you listening, you too are dealing with declining cognition within a loved one. And how do you cope? How do you help them have their best day, have their best week and month? Those of you who are dealing with cancer. I mean, I've got a niece right now who is in stage 4 colon cancer. Hi, Sarah, love you very much. And many of you have been praying for her. Many of you have helped her. She's let me know that she's getting cards and letters from some of you, because on our Hope for Sarah page at gilberthouse.org, we have her mailing address. So if you want to send a little check, that would be much appreciated, because she's got huge bills, but she really appreciates that encouragement.
Yeah. Sarah is a go-getter. She doesn't like to sit still.
No.
And
she's rearranged her house many times.
Yeah. And this has forced her to slow down, because physically there are just limitations when you're dealing with an affliction like this. So if you go to gilberthouse.org/hope4sarah, all one word, you can, Sarah's got her story posted there, and then we've got some ways that you can help. But again, if it's just a card or a letter, that is truly, truly appreciated. Very
much so. Well, I've also posted to Facebook, some of you may have seen it, that I'm dealing with mybomitis, and it's that mybomites. I've got no, it's mybomitis. The meibomian gland is what secretes oil in your eyes, and it helps to keep your eyes moisturized. Otherwise, the tear film would just stay on there for minutes, so it makes it a little more oily. Right now, mine are all plugged up, and they just don't want to unplug. And when they get plugged like that, they can become, they don't function correctly anymore. Your eyes feel even drier, and you can get styes. For the last 6 months, almost every 3 weeks, I get a sty. And they're really annoying. I don't wear makeup at home, but when I'm on camera, I have to wear makeup. And otherwise, I look really washed out. So just to look like I have some eyes, I put some around my body. My eyes don't like it at all.
And very light sensitive too.
My eyes are so extremely light sensitive right now. And so I'm being treated by a doctor, an eye doctor. And while he was in there discovering what was going on with my eyes, he said, "Do you know you've got cataracts?" Like, no, because honestly, the world, except for that, really the fact that my eyes water a lot and I'm light sensitive, and they feel, they really feel irritated. Let's just put it that way. Aside from that, I hadn't noticed any difference. And he said, "Well, you do. They're getting advanced enough. We need to take those off." And I thought, gosh, what will the world look like when they're gone?
Yeah.
Imagine that.
Everyone I know who's had that done has said, "Wow, this is."
Oh, I know.
Night and day.
I'm looking forward to it. Thank the Lord for Medicare. But spiritually speaking, I'm not the only one. You and I have heard from maybe a dozen of our friends in ministry who are being afflicted in their eyes in some ways.
Yes.
Isn't that interesting?
It is quite a coincidence. If you're a coincidence theorist, which we are not, there are, a couple of close friends who are dealing with the same thing. Or similar eye afflictions. Yes.
Yeah. It makes it hard for me to write, too, because I can't really read what's on the screen.
Yeah, I know. Text to speech is fine, but you still need to see what the screen is captured.
And my way of writing, I can't talk it. I literally have to, there's something that happens with my fingers being involved on the keyboard. But yeah, it's been very, very difficult. That's been slowing me down tremendously. And I've really, gone back and forth in my head. Do I want to say anything about this? Because I've been giving you updates as to what's going on and why Book 9 is delayed. I just finally thought, look, I'm just going to tell people and ask for prayer. That's the main reason Book 9 is delayed. Yeah. I'm really having trouble sitting in front of a screen for very long.
You made progress, but not the kind of progress that you are used to making.
I was able to go through and reformat 2 previously published books from almost 20 years ago.
Right.
I wrote one in 2023, and it came out in 2024. The other one I wrote in
2003 and came out in 2004.
Wrote one in 2003, came out in 2004. Another one I wrote in 2002. It also came out in 2004. So these 2 books, I left them as is, partly because we've got other books that rely upon that time frame, but more so for me because there are things in there that have come true. Doesn't mean I'm a prophet. It's just I look at what's going on in the world and I just
project ahead.
Here's the ray and where it's going, and it's probably going to end up here.
These 2 books, by the way, the novels, Winds of Evil and The Armageddon Strain, which have are now book 1 and book 2 of the Laodicea Chronicles.
I decided that because I've got characters and crossovers and mentions to both, so it seemed easier just to do it that way.
And the God Conspiracy, which is not officially part of the Laodicea Chronicles, that's my novel that came out 2 years ago. When items and topics that ideas that you let me borrow from the Armageddon strain suddenly became very, very relevant.
Characters.
Yeah, characters as well. So there is crossover between those novels, and there will be more in the God Game, which I'm working on now, slowly.
Well, we only have so many hours in the day. So anyway, we're re-releasing those. We got the rights back finally. Officially, we were told some time ago that we had the rights, but we never had the piece of paper in hand. So we've got the actual release that if Amazon wants it, they can have it to prove that we've got the rights again. But we are going to re-release those, and they'll probably be out within less than 2 weeks. Yeah.
The official release date is August 15th. May take a little more time than that.
Yeah, but sometime in August, I think.
Yeah. By the way, and I'm going to check right now because I'm curious about this. Somebody had posted in our
app,
that The God Conspiracy, my novel, is available at audible.com. Okay, this is, I think, the version that I recorded because it's got the old cover. This may be one that they imported from the old Patio books.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. By the way, if you're hearing a plane outside, it's because it's really, really a beautiful morning here in the Ozarks. So we've got our door open with the screen down so we can, or the window down so we can get some air into the barn here. So anyway, it appears that The God Conspiracy is available on audio. Let me check about Iron Dragons and see.
Did you ever record it for Patio books?
I did, yes. Both of them. In fact, back in 2005, 2006, Iron Dragons and The God Conspiracy were both, for a time, #1 on the chart.
Ooh.
And it's got the old cover for Iron Dragons, too. So that likely are versions that they just imported from Patio books.
Who being they? Audio?
Audible, yeah.
Okay, you might want to go in and claim those.
I'm going to double check. They're not charging for them, so they're available for free.
Okay.
Which means, and that's how they were available at Patio Books.
Sure.
The reason I'm looking is because we learned after the fact that somebody had recorded a version of Giants, Gods, and Dragons.
Mm-hmm. An audio version.
Yeah, and put it up at Amazon, was selling it. And it was not from Defender Publishing. Now, Defender, because we've seen more and more requests over the years for people asking for audiobooks, and Defender Publishing has listened, and they are going forward. All new Defender Publishing titles will be released on Audible, and so
it's a difficult process. Let's just put it that way. You can hire someone to read it, but you have to give them this massive pronunciation guide,
right.
And then whatever time scale, they may say, I'll have it for you in 2 weeks. And 2 months later, you're still waiting for it.
Right.
And then it comes back with mispronunciations. So it's a difficult process.
It is, especially when you're dealing with the kind of subject material we deal in, which has a lot of Mesopotamian, Canaanite, Hebrew, archaic,
Very difficult. So I can't blame them for mispronouncing, but yeah.
So anyway, those will be out going forward. Our next book, The Gates of Hell, does have an Audible version edition that will be coming out simultaneously with the print edition, which is a good thing. Older books, I think they are going through and they're selecting ones that seem to be the most popular. And so I don't know what those titles are, but Defender Publishing books, which includes our nonfiction stuff, those will be available, some of them anyway, on Audible. But the new ones going forward will be on Audible.
Right.
So
we're looking into it.
We have heard and we've listened, yes. And as far as our fiction stuff, we would have to take that on ourselves because we are the publisher for our fiction. And Donna Howell has agreed to help us with going through the process, which apparently is rather convoluted.
Yeah.
So, but what we do know is this: we've done audiobooks here, and it takes a lot of time to do it right. You never realize until you start listening back with headphones on how many weird little noises your mouth makes when it's close to a microphone.
Yeah, well, there's no way around that. There are probably plugins that will just take out all those extraneous noises.
Oh, probably.
Yeah,
well, we need to dive into some stuff. Blather for 15 minutes already.
Let me just jump into a biggie.
Okay.
I saw a map, which I shared with you, of all the Middle East installations that belong to the United States. There are a lot of them.
Yes, there are.
All over the place. One of them is called Site 512.
Yes.
In Israel. In the Negev, I think.
We have talked about this before, Site 512.
We have, and Site 512 is run by the Space Force, the Space Brigade. So we are told, according to Wikipedia, we're told that it is a listening post, a radar installation, and they're watching for ballistic missiles.
From Iran.
Well, Iran or from someplace.
Yemen.
Towards one of their allies in the Middle East.
Which would be pretty much Israel.
Possibly Saudi Arabia.
Or Saudi Arabia. Yeah, almost certainly Saudi Arabia.
Yeah. But and Barrett, I even read, I kid you not, that they're also watching for missiles from North Korea. Yeah.
Really?
Now, interestingly, North Korea is selling secrets and material to Iran. Nuclear secrets and missile technology, as well as actual missiles.
That's not a very friendly
we tend to forget about North Korea until they, launch and
starts doing some missile tests into the Sea of Japan or something. Yeah. This Site 512, I remember we talked about the unique name of the mountain, Har Karen, which means Mount Horns.
Yes.
Which is probably the root word behind the name Kronos.
Exactly.
According to a scholar, this is not us. Oh, this sounds like so it must be this. No. Dr. Nicholas Wyatt, who's Professor Emeritus of University of Edinburgh, is the one who pointed out that connection. So,
KRN. It is a root for crown, Kronos, all these things that have to do with something around your head, like horns or authority.
So that's where we've got the ballistic missile early warning radar system. According to the wiki, it's the AN/TPY-2 surveillance transportable radar.
Transportable?
Yeah, it looks like a mobile unit. You can move it from place to place.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, but Site 512 is where that is located, and we weren't even aware of it until a few months ago. But we did talk about it on a previous episode because the U.S. Actually, I think it was late last year. There was a story that came out about the U.S. Quietly expanding that military base.
We also have one in Syria.
Yeah, those were the the boots that aren't supposed to be touching the ground over there. President Obama said we have no boots on the ground, so it must be true.
They must be going around in high heels then.
Yeah, sand shoes, sneakers. Yeah. Ugh. So, but this missile system, or this rather radar system to detect incoming missiles, this weekend may be the last quiet weekend that Israel has for a while. And we pray that is not the case. We pray that cooler heads in Iran prevail. The Israelis have been waiting kind of on edge ever since the assassination of Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh, July 31st, I think it was. He was in Tehran for the
funeral,
for the inauguration.
Oh, that's right. It was for
the inauguration of the new Iranian president, Pezeshkian. And he was staying in a guest house owned and operated by the IRGC, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. Some questions as to how exactly he was taken out. It was an explosion of some kind. Some say it was a missile strike. Others, in fact, the New York Times reported that it was a bomb that had been smuggled into that unit 2 months ago and then was detonated remotely once the target was in place. But either way, Israel has not claimed responsibility for it. They've not admitted to doing it, but it's pretty well assumed by most parties that Israel was responsible for taking out Haniyeh.
blames them.
Iran blames them, right.
Iran blames them.
And the IRGC wants payback. They want to hit Israel and hit Israel hard. But the new President Pezeshkian, who's supposedly a moderate, but he was approved by Ayatollah Khamenei, so how much of a moderate could he be? He is reportedly been trying to work inside Iran to not hit back hard, forcing Israel to respond even harder, because that could wind up. The bottom line is this: the Iranian government, those who are rational, don't want to be ruling over a pile of rubble. And Israel would probably have the capability of turning a lot of Tehran into rubble if the hardliners in Iran get their way and start launching missile strikes at at Tel Aviv. I don't know that they would try to strike Jerusalem.
They had missiles going in Jerusalem's direction last time.
Flew over Jerusalem. They weren't targeting Jerusalem.
They went in their direction last time.
Yeah.
I know they flew over it, but right. They could have landed in it. Just to go in that direction is foolish.
Yeah, I mean, things may not go exactly where they're pointed. The reason I say I don't think they would target Jerusalem, whether they hit Jerusalem or not is another question. I don't think they would target Jerusalem because being a theocracy and believers in Shia Islam, Muslims believe that when Messiah comes, Isa, their conception of Jesus, which is a false conception, will hand the reins of power over to the Mahdi, thank you, at Jerusalem. So if Jerusalem has been destroyed, where is this all going to happen? So,
well, what's interesting about that is that it paints Jesus, whom they call Isa, in the role of the false prophet.
Kind of does, yeah.
Horns like a lamb. And he would point to the Antichrist.
The Mahdi, right.
Exactly. But along with Iran's anger and desire for revenge, in Lebanon, the man who is said to have masterminded the strike that killed 10, I think it was, children on a playground. 12 children on a playground, excuse me. He was killed. And so those in Lebanon, Hezbollah. Right. Not the citizens, but Hezbollah, who actually runs things. They're like a gang. Yeah. I mean, it's like mafia running a country. And they want revenge as well. Right, because over the past few weeks, Israel has taken out the number one man in Hamas, the number two man in Hezbollah, the guy that you're talking about, and some other high-ranking officials in both of those organizations as well. So yes, Hezbollah wants blood, Hamas wants blood, and Iran is got both of those junkyard dogs on chains, and they're trying to keep them leashed. It appears, if the news reporting is accurate. Well, good luck with that. Only the Lord can hold them back. True, yes. Also, it just came out, a report, not announced by the White House, but a report that is supposed to have some merit to it, that Biden has withdrawn the pause that he inflicted upon Saudi Arabia's ability to buy offensive weapons from the United States. Okay. There are a number of contracts in place that were all said, no, put a hold on those. We cannot allow them to have offensive weapons manufactured here. Well, that's all going to be, okay, let's go. It's now green light for those contracts, which means companies like Raytheon, although they're called something else now, will be able to send over the hundreds of millions of dollars worth of offensive weapons to Saudi Arabia. Now, generally, Saudi Arabia is protected offensively by the United States. So why are we suddenly sending weapons to Saudi Arabia? I don't know. One of the things, the takeaways from the book, The Secret War Against the Jews, which provided a lot of the information that I used in my presentation at the Go Therefore conference. Highly recommend you read it. It's a long read, but boy, you'll finish it and go, I think I'll read this again. Yeah, it is eye-opening. It shows how Western intelligence services, United States, UK in particular, but also France and Germany, were very much opposed to the creation of an independent Jewish state, and how after 1948 and the Declaration of Independence, how these agencies worked on behalf of the oil companies and the Arabs
to the detriment of Israel. In the 1956 Suez Crisis, 1967 Six-Day War, 1973 Yom Kippur War, how the balance of power was shifted by well-meaning but naive American presidents like Jimmy Carter. We'll give more weapons to the Arabs, which will make them happy. They're unhappy that we're selling these F-15s to Israel, so we'll start sharing intelligence with them. We'll tell them where all of Israel's military secrets or secret bases are and stuff like that. It really is eye-opening. I'm not sure that there's ever been a coherent strategy as far as supply of weapons and military hardware to the Gulf Arab states is concerned. I would say the ground has probably changed from where it was 30 years ago when, or 50 years ago when Jimmy Carter was, well, it wasn't quite 50 years ago, but anyway, late 70s when Jimmy Carter was starting to sell weapons to the Saudis. 50 years ago was when Nixon delivered weapons to Israel, but belatedly after the Yom Kippur War, during the Yom Kippur War, which really finally he became the first American president to really supply military hardware to Israel. Things have changed now where with Mohammed bin Salman and with the UAE and Bahrain being more open and Kuwait more open to friendly relations with Israel, normalizing relations, that things are different than where they were through much of the 40s, the 30s through the 70s. When
maybe.
But
they say they're different.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Maybe things may be different. On the other hand, it may be, just a marriage of convenience. Taqiyya, yes, which in Islam means you can lie in the service of Islam, in the service of, Allah. Taqiyya, and there's another one called Tawira, which is not lying directly, but just not telling the entire truth. As long as it's done for Allah, it's okay. Quite different from the commandment that says thou shalt not lie.
Yes.
Yeah. In Islam, it's lying's okay as long as it's for a good reason. Yeah. Anyway, so I'm not sure there's a coherent and consistent policy other than making money, which has driven American foreign policy in the Middle East since the beginning.
It's driven American foreign policy for over 100 years.
Sure. And that's one of the things that really comes through in the book, The Secret War Against the Jews, that when you got to about 1930 and they started striking oil in the Gulf and realized how cheap it was to extract, how much there was. Oh, well, the Arabs have oil, Jews don't have any, so who needs Israel? And that's really what it comes down to. It's just as simple as that.
You mentioned F-15s a little while ago. Was it F-15s or 16s that we're supposed to sell to Turkey? And did we ever deliver those?
16s, not sure. I know that we've just sent some 16s to Ukraine. I don't think those are going to change the outcome there. Yes, Turkey has F-16s, second largest in NATO, in fact. $23 billion deal for F-16s.
Yeah, it was being held back for a while just to make sure that Erdogan played nice with NATO meetings. Okay, you have to agree to this, you have to agree to that with Ukraine and Russia and all these things. And it put him in, frankly, a catbird seat.
They've already got some F-16s, but they need spare parts, and they want 40 more jets, and they need upgrades to become more modern, software and so on.
Right. Well, they'll just use those against Israel.
Well, yeah, they might. I know Erdogan is talking about invading. He threatened to invade Israel.
I know.
Over the situation in Gaza. So
he is directly north of Israel.
That is true. The heights of the north, sides of the north, uttermost north points to Mount Safan, which is in Turkey.
And I'll say again that the book of Revelation, those 7 churches are all in Turkey. I think there's a lot you need to pay attention to Turkey.
Also, the 9th of Av, you need to pay attention to, which comes up Monday, sundown Monday in Jerusalem.
Monday into Tuesday.
Right. That is Tisha B'Av, which is a date that marks the destruction of the first temple and the second temple. First temple in 586 BC, Nebuchadnezzar, 70 AD, the second time with the Romans. There are Western intelligence analysts who, in an interview with Sky News Arabia earlier this week, said they thought that the 9th of Av would be the date that Iran responds, which may be why it hasn't happened yet. They may be waiting for that psychological date, which is a date of mourning and fasting for observant Jews to mourn the destruction of the temples, for Iran to strike with its proxies, Hamas and Hezbollah. So we pray that the story about Pezeshkian trying to convince Khamenei and trying to overcome resistance from the IRGC, which wants a muscular response, are true.
Well, you've told me before, and we've also discussed it on here, that the Ayatollahs are aging, and if they want to make their mark, so to speak.
Yeah, that was Ali Siadatan, who I'm speaking to next week, by the way. We're going to talk about this. He believes that we're on the verge of Ezekiel 38 and 39, the Gog-Magog conflict. I think that is at the end of the age because it ends with Armageddon.
Well, the real one. The
real one. But there may be a false Gog-Magog conflict. We could talk about that. And also, red heifer practice.
Oh, my goodness.
We need to talk about
graphic.
about
my
that.
Gosh.
I'll put an image of that on the show notes at PIDradio.com.
With a caption that explains, no, this is not real, and it's wrong for so many reasons.
We'll tell you why when PID Radio continues. Giants, gods, dragons, they're all real. We may not see them with our natural eyes, but their handiwork is evident in what's happening in the world around us, the spiritual warfare taking place.
It is so true. It's obvious in Israel, but worldwide. Historically, we've seen this happen. And we want you to get excited about the Old Testament and the New and the giants, gods, and dragons within it, because your kids need this information. So do you.
Yes. We're living in prophetic times. Help make sense of it with our special offer through July. Our book, Giants, Gods, and Dragons, which takes a fresh look at end times prophecy. My book's Bad Moon Rising, about the spiritual forces behind Islam. And Last Clash of the Titans, the overlap between what we were told is Greek mythology and the Bible. And our DVD, based on the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. All of this, an $80 value for just $45 plus shipping and handling. Now through July, only at our online store, gilberthouse.org/store. Extended through August. Welcome back to PID Radio. I'm Derek Gilbert.
I'm Sharon Gilbert, and I'll tell you, this world is crazy. But we still, in this crazy world, plan on going to Israel in November. Now, if you go to gilberthouse.org/travel, you will always see the most recent updates as to when we're going and whether or not a tour's dates are changed. So always go there to check it out. And it'll be right there on the page.
Yeah.
I know that Lipkin Tours, they're pretty quick about changing things, but Derek and I put it up there right away. November 7th? 6th.
No, 6th through 13th.
Yeah,
those
so we're still
dates.
planning on going. It's possible, depending upon what happens in the next week, that we may need to change that. I pray not, because, look, it meant so much to us. It clearly meant a lot to the people with whom we interacted there.
Yeah.
That they know that not all Americans hate them.
And that Christians stand with them.
Exactly.
Which is a surprise to a lot of Jews, because a lot of Jews are taught that Christians are not what we really are. They've got a misconception about what we believe and what constitutes a Christian. Many think that, for example, let's just say certain world leaders in the past who really persecuted the Jews were good Christians. And that just isn't the case. I'm talking about the leader of Germany during World War II. So seeing us say, look, we don't want anything from you. We're just here to say we are praying for you. We love Israel. We love the people of Israel. And we know that you are in an existential struggle right
Absolutely.
now.
And by the way, the leader of Germany in World War II was not a Christian.
No, absolutely not.
Not at all. And it's just he never said he was.
No, but there are people around the world who say, well, because he was baptized or christened or whatever, that
when he was a boy,
it doesn't mean anything.
He hated the church.
He did. He was an occultist.
Yes.
His political party was a cult. Yeah. So anyway, so I was just astonished when we had people who he just met at various places, the hospital or at at Gush Etzion.
Can we take your picture?
Yeah.
Can we take pictures with you?
Mount Herzl, which was their version of the Arlington National Cemetery. It's where their soldiers are laid to rest. People just, can we take a picture with you? Sure. Yeah.
I know. It's like, why would you want to do that?
Yeah. So you can join us. Again, we're watching to see what will happen probably this coming week, if anything is to happen.
I pray nothing happens, please, Lord.
Yeah, yeah. According to the stories that I've read, Pezeshkian is trying to get the Ayatollah to just sign off on attacking Mossad bases in places like Azerbaijan and Iraq and so forth, secret Mossad bases, instead of going after civilian targets.
Well, to know where they're at, they're not very secret.
Well, yeah. We don't know where they are, so they're secret to us.
Speaking of the Mossad, I mean, if the planted bomb theory is correct with regards to Haniyeh, then that's pretty amazing. I have to say that going way back to the early days of the 20th century, Israel's intelligence operations, they outstrip everybody else's.
They did.
And they still do.
Yeah. In fact, it began even before the modern state of Israel. And again, this is in that book, The Secret War Against the Jews, Israeli intelligence officers working inside the services of Germany, France, the UK, US, and the Soviet
Russia,
Union.
Yeah, exactly.
Really, really swung the war.
They did.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Well, let's see.
A couple of other things just very quickly. Just to remind you, the spot that you heard, the little promotional announcement that said ends through July, we've extended that offer through August.
Oh, yeah.
So
because we were gone for part of that time, we figured that wasn't very fair.
And also the websites were down for a while. We were switching to a new server.
Oh, that's right. I'd forgotten all about that. It seemed like it took forever to get through that, and now that it's in the past, like,
did that even happen? What a blip.
Yeah.
But also want to let you know that we've got now T-shirts.
T-shirts.
GHTV, Gilbert House TV, T-shirts. Also Red Wing Saga T-shirts, if you're a fan of the Red Wing Saga novels.
Those were popular in Ohio.
So you can find those at gilberthouse.org/store. It's right there on the landing page for the store, as well as links to Simply Clean Foods and their vacuum-packed, vacuum-sealed coffee, which is really, really good. Organic coffee and non-GMO freeze-dried foods, all of that at gilberthouse.org/store.
By the way, the T-shirts and also the mugs. And
mugs,
we may be getting hats soon, too. We're looking into that. Those are done by Kenny C. and his fiancée, Gidget. And they are taking their proceeds. So when you click on the graphic at gilberthouse.org at our store, you will be taken to Light Hive Creations, which is their company. And their profits are used to buy instruments for Kenny's students that can't afford them.
Kenny is a gifted world-class musician, and he is a music teacher. Yeah, and he works with kids, and he's helping to provide instruments for children whose families can't afford to get them a keyboard or a guitar or whatever. So that is what your very gracious support. I mean, this is not going to enrich us or Kenny and Gidget.
No.
We take what we take in and gets plowed back into the ministry and other ministries that we support. Kenny and Gidget are using it that way to support kids who are learning the gift of music and giving them an opportunity to do so with their own instruments. So that's where that all goes.
Well, holy cow! I mean.
Holy cow!
Cowabunga!
Harry Carey, yeah.
Oh my gosh, he did, didn't he? Oh, you have to say it the way he did it.
Well, I just gave it my best shot right there. So
nobody can do it like he did.
No, that's true.
Couple of things.
I am
One
wearing
is
my Cubs cap, though.
I noticed that, which was very appropriate. And you're wearing the Dig Bible podcast T-shirt.
Yeah. Thanks, Justin.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Who is my adopted nephew. There are a couple of stories that have to do with bovine subjects. One I'll do first, and that is that a research study is looking at a very small sample from one infected cow from a Texas dairy herd who was taken down with H5N1. Looking at the receptors on the mammary glands within that cow, because it's now thought that the virus is passed through the udders and it is also contracted through the udders. In other words, something about the transition from one cow to another with milking equipment may in some way lead to this cross-contamination. It looks as if, according to this, it's one study, one cow. So this is very, very early days, but it looks like the H5N1 attaches to receptor cells specifically on the mammary gland tissue, two kinds. One looks very much like a bird receptor cell. In other words, avian receptor cells also, I don't know what tissue in the bird, by the way, also have that receptor. Doesn't mean it's a hybrid species. It just means same design, same designer. And human-like receptors on the bovine tissue. Again, doesn't mean hybrid, just means same design, same designer. It works, so why not keep the same design? It's a conformational thing. This particular receptor it works with the hemagglutinin protein on the surface of the virus, and it pulls it into the cell. What does this mean? Theoretically, it means that cows might also be a mixing vessel for various viruses that they can be infected by birds. They can cross and infect humans. So in other words, you don't have to go bird to pig to human anymore. You can go bird to cow to human. It's not efficient. Only a few human beings have gotten sick. So again, this is very, very early days, but we are seeing more and more and more stories about a possible pandemic with H5N1. CDC just raised their rating for this possible pandemic up ever so slightly. It's like moving from, if it's DEFCON 1 to 20, is 20 being the worst, it's DEFCON 1.5.
Oh, okay.
So it's very low possibility of a worldwide pandemic. However, we don't know that for sure. What we do know, what we can hypothesize about, and what I got into in the Armageddon strain, which, as we said, it's been re-released, was that sometimes mankind lends it a hand. That's just all I'll say about that.
Gain of function.
Oh, you said the words. Now they're going to go, oh, you can't say that. That is what it's called. And it's done for the correct reasons when you want to see, how do we prepare for war? It's wargaming.
Right.
That's what gain of function research should be. It's wargaming with viruses and bacteria.
Right. But you need to do it under very, very controlled conditions.
You do.
Yeah.
Because if the gain of function research gets out into the wild, it can be very, very bad.
Right.
Anyway, that's one holy cow story.
Yes.
The other one,
yes, was
it's not even a cow.
It's not. That's.
I laughed so hard when I saw that picture.
Yeah, there's a story from Middle East Eye, and that appears to be not a conservative site because
probably
it's
a Muslim.
I'm guessing, or at least an
anti-Israel.
They would call themselves anti-Zionist. We're not anti-Israel. We're only anti-Zionist.
Okay.
Which means Israel doesn't have a right to exist or something for a lot of people. Anyway, that's because the category in which it's under is news/occupation.
What?
Yeah.
The
Israelis
as in
are occupying
gotcha.
the land, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, the
so
story
it's probably
was
Palestinian.
Probably, yeah. The guy's got a Scottish name though, MacDonald. So
that could be made up.
Yeah. True.
Anyway,
true. About the
he had a farm though.
Practice.
You'd think he'd know
the difference between a cow, a heifer, and a bull.
Well, that's not even a bull.
Steer.
I see no equipment on that.
That's right.
I see no,
Yes, gotcha. You're right.
Nothing under the tail that I could see. It looks like
a steer. Yeah, but definitely not a cow or a heifer. Anyway, the headline is Israelis practice red heifer ritual in front of Al-Aqsa Mosque. First of all, it's Dome of the Rock in the background. Al-Aqsa is not anywhere in the picture unless it's behind the cutout what they describe as the cutout cow.
Yeah, it looks like they're standing on the Mount of Olives.
Yes, that is where they're at. They're on the Mount of Olives. And the cutout,
which has been photoshopped in badly.
Yeah, it might be, or it might actually be like a stand-up cardboard cutout. But the bottom line is, as you say, it is laughable for anybody who knows anything about physiology.
I don't think it's a stand-up cardboard cutout. I mean, why would they take that up there?
Well, I don't know.
Unless they're pretending to be priests practicing something. It looks to me like it's photoshopped in. But it is not solid red.
Yeah, that's the other thing. It's not solid red, which the red heifer has to be.
It's not a heifer.
And it is definitely not a heifer. Yeah, that is not an udder down there.
That is utterly ridiculous.
Yeah. So this is likely to stir tensions.
That story has been making the rounds on X, formerly Twitter.
Right. Hamas claimed, and this was reported by CBS News back in March. CBS said that Hamas claimed the reason they attacked on October 7th was the delivery of the red heifers from Texas to Israel.
Well, that was their stated excuse, but it just happened to be 50 years after the 1973 war.
Exactly, yeah. Kind of a sick jubilee. So the Numbers 19, the ritual described in Numbers chapter 19, it's not explicitly clear in there. It's the whole ritual is developed with additional rabbinic tradition over the years. But according to what is in the Bible in Numbers 19, the ashes of a perfectly red heifer, which is a cow that has not been bred, it has to be sacrificed, then burned, and then those ashes mixed with water, and that's used to purify the priest, but also the ground for the Temple Mount.
Right.
For the reconstruction of the third temple. So because this is connected to what is assumed to be the construction of the third temple, which would have to go, if everybody is correct, that Solomon's temple stood where the Dome of the Rock now stands, the Dome of the Rock would have to go, and that would probably lead to World War III.
Well, they can do the red heifer ritual. It's done outside the camp.
True. Yes,
so
it is.
Mount of Olives is probably the area where it would have been done.
But religious Muslims looking at that would freak out and say, look, the Zionists are wanting to take the Temple Mount. They want to desecrate Al-Aqsa.
I absolutely agree with you there. It's more than just pure red. The heifer has to be a certain age. I think it's between 3 and 4 or something like that. But this is partly tradition, but also cannot have had a yoke on it or done any work.
Right. So the red heifers that were delivered to Israel are now at Shiloh.
Yeah,
and that was one of the clues in the
video.
Oh yeah, Aaron Lipkin basically went and visited them not long ago.
And by the way, we asked Lipkin Tours if it would be possible for the November group to go to Shiloh. And they said yes.
Yeah. Now, will
that could change?
The heifers still be there? We don't know.
Don't know, but I would love to visit them.
Yeah. That was one of the clues at this article at Middle East Eye, by the way, was not a pro-Israel site because they described the heifers being kept at an illegal settlement at Shiloh. I'm sorry.
I'm saying that's Palestinian.
Judea and Samaria are what the world calls the West Bank. I'm sorry, it belongs to Israel.
Yes.
It belongs to Israel. It was promised to Israel as part of the League of Nations Charter 1922.
Yes.
Jordan renounced its claims to the West Bank in 1988. So who does it belong to if not Israel?
Exactly.
Yeah. Anyway,
it's whoever the United States and Great Britain say it belongs to.
Yeah, that's
kind of how it goes.
The giant brains at the State Department think. But anyway, so the fact that this story is out there, and you're right, it's been cycling through X. In fact, it just popped up in my thread now.
They're listening to you.
Yeah, Christian lady who follows me, and I follow her. She's just reshared that story. But the story and the image there, that is not what a red heifer looks like. It's not fully red, and it's not a heifer. It's not even a female. bovid. It is a male who has been fixed. It is a steer.
Yep.
So
it's
anyway.
lunch.
Yeah.
Nom nom.
Barbecue. Well, there are activists from the Temple Institute who are really pushing for this idea, the creation of a third temple. But we interviewed Carl Gallups and Zev Porat, Rabbi Zev Porat, about this years ago, back when we were in Israel in 2019. So 5 years ago. And they talked about their experience going into the Temple Institute and asking how much money would it take to basically get the job done, to get that third temple created.
We have that video still, don't we?
We do, yeah. I have to check with them and see if that would be something we could put together.
Yeah, that would be nice.
We did not include it with our travelogumentary of our 2019 tour.
It wasn't on the extras disc?
No. No. It's about a 1 hour session where they sat and they described what they went through. But they have talked about it on Skywatch TV since. And basically what it comes down to is this. Zev Porat and other Orthodox Jews, friends of ours in Israel, say, look, we have the synagogue system now. We don't need the third temple. This is a political movement by this group. It's not really a religious movement to bring Messiah. It's a political movement to influence Israeli politics, and they're using it to solicit money from well-meaning Christians in the West and in China. A lot of Chinese Christians who donate. And then they use that to donate to political campaigns. They don't intend to use the money to actually build a third temple. They just want us to think they are, so we'll send the money. Which is that was kind of jaw-dropping, but their conversation they had at the Temple Institute was really revealing.
Oh, it really was.
Yeah,
we'll have to find that and see if we can put that together for you. Carlo's going to be out here soon, and we are going to sit down with him, and he's going to tell us all of his secrets. We're going to shine a really bright light on him.
Yes.
And tell him to talk.
Confess.
All right, he starts talking, and 3 days later, he's still talking.
He is an easy interview.
Isn't he, though?
Question
and
one, question two, final question.
Information.
He does.
The stuff that he revealed in Ohio, it is jaw-dropping. Yeah.
His presentation, I'll tell you what, the content in the presentations at the Go Therefore conference was just end to end. Dynamite.
Top notch.
Dynamite.
Such good stuff. Joe Horn.
Yes. In fact, we got in touch with Mike Spalding and we asked them if they would extend the period that people could register for the video stream because some folks just weren't able to attend. But because Joe's presentation on why we do what we do at Skywatch TV, working for children at risk, boy, watch that presentation and keep tissues close by.
Oh gosh, it's so good.
But Carl's presentation was like that's in the Bible. Yeah, when you look at the Hebrew, it's like encoded right into the Bible.
Yeah, I mean, it's so many forehead slapping moments that it is amazing. What is so funny though, yours was amazing too. It's some of the stuff that we've talked about on here with regards to the secret war against the Jews.
Right.
You explain so many things, and you really you debunk a lot of stuff that people just assume is history.
Right. Yeah. Contrary to what many believe, the Rothschild banking dynasty did not have a significant role in the formation of modern Israel.
They didn't. They weren't nearly as powerful as we're told.
No.
But yes, yours is so good. Yours, Carl's, Joe's. I mean, those three alone is worth the price of admission. Mine is not there. And this is so funny because I told a story. I told a short story that was all about the emergence of a sentient deity within the AI system that wanted to control its makers and all of government, all the world. And it was called Kronos. It's the entire short story that I excerpted many years ago at True Legends. And it's also Opening the Gates of Hell.
Right.
Our new book that'll come out later this year. But it's the entire story.
Right.
So I told the entire story. I read the entire story to the group, again, about an AI. Not only the main broadcast system stopped working, 2 redundant systems failed to record.
Right. So you only get the beginning of Sharon's presentation. It's like the AI realized she was spilling the beans and killed not only the live stream, but the broadcast, the backup systems that were supposed to catch it.
Yes, because they were double redundant to make sure that they got, so 3 ways and it just didn't do it. Now, mine is the only one that failed.
Yeah.
So what's that tell you?
Bizarre.
I know, right? Well, means I got to record mine again.
We'll do it here in the barn, and that's one of the reasons we are thankful we've got this space, so we can do it in a place that's not like sitting in a spare bedroom and doing it. It's something
can we just put a massive, Faraday cage around the barn?
Yeah, probably should have done that.
Fully metal. I wonder if.
Yeah.
Don't know if that works.
We'll just put
aluminum
foil through the rafters. How about that? That should work. So anyway, and I want to thank publicly John Haller of.
Yes, thank you so much, John.
Yeah,
and it was so much fun to talk to you.
Yes. John came out to the conference, and he basically came for just my presentation, which was quite an honor.
Sorry.
Very, very honored by that. And he, on his weekly prophecy update from Fellowship Bible Chapel in Columbus, Ohio, said to people that they should go to the GoThereforeConference.com website and get the entire package just for my presentation. So thank you, John. That was quite an honor. Coming from him, I take that as high praise.
You know who else came was Jim Wilhelmsen.
Yes.
Oh, what a joy to talk to that man.
I'm going to talk about one of the OGs of this fringe Christianity. He was one of the speakers at the very early Ancient of Days UFO Bible conferences, or Bible whatever, that Guy Malone put together down in Roswell, New Mexico. Jim, L.A. Marzulli was there early on, Mike Heiser, David Flynn.
Oh, yeah. We interviewed all of them, I think, at some point on PID Radio.
Yeah. So Jim came down from Michigan with a young fella Matt Phillips, who brought him down here. We met Matt and his family when they came through the Ozarks here a few weeks back, and he brought Jim down. So it was really an honor to meet Jim. He's the author of a book called Beyond Science Fiction, which talks about the spiritual roots behind the UFO phenomenon. So Jim very graciously gifted us a copy of his book, traded him a copy of the UFO book that I co-authored with Josh Peck, The Day the Earth Stands Still. And that was really a wonderful gathering. But beyond our talks, Joe Horn's talk, you've got L.A. Marzulli's talk, Tom Dunn. Carl Gallup's is just mind-blowing, just showing some of the hidden gems inside the scriptures. Judd Burton on the timing of Jesus' declaration of his divinity at Caesarea Philippi.
Oh, that's amazing stuff.
Yeah. So if you've not seen the conference, bless Dr. Mike and Kathy Spalding at GoThereforeConference.com. Get the video stream, because the presentations, I think you will not be disappointed. Just really top-notch information.
Amen to that. Well, tomorrow morning, of course, we're going to have Gilbert House Fellowship.
Mm-hmm.
Is that where we are on time?
Pretty close. Yeah, I was just going to touch on one other thing.
Oh, well, let's do the one other thing then.
Yeah, it basically...
It's like the thing at the Apple conferences,
Yeah. Oh, one more thing. And this is just... I think maybe relevant because of just some warning signs. And this is not to stoke any fear or anxiety, just a reminder to be prepared. If you've got long-term stuff that you can store in your shelves, like beans, rice, whatever. It doesn't have to be freeze-dried food or anything like that, although, again, we highly recommend Simply
Beans and
Clean
rice
Foods for
last
that.
a long time, have a source for, clean water.
Mm-hmm. There was a brief round of panic this past Monday when the Bank of Japan raised its interest rates by 1/4 basis point.
Yes.
The Japanese yen has been used for something called the carry trade. It's like 2 billion yen, which is like $134 billion. That's a fair amount of money globally. As far as the global economy is concerned, it's a drop in the bucket. But the carry trade is where you borrow money in one currency at a low rate of interest. And the Bank of Japan has kept interest rates artificially low, trying to keep the Japanese economy from sliding into contraction, which is what you call recession or depression. Right. Well, they tried raising the interest rates 1/4%. And suddenly the carry trade, where you borrow money at a low rate of interest in one currency and then invest it in a higher rate of return somewhere else. Suddenly the cost of borrowing the 2 billion yen went up, and that forced a lot of people who were investing on credit to have to liquidate in order to pay the interest on what they'd borrowed.
Right.
So that drove down the price on a lot of assets around the world, and suddenly the Nikkei dropped. The NASDAQ dropped 1,000 points for the first time ever in a single day. The biggest drop ever. The Dow was down substantially. Markets around the world were just in full panic mode.
Looking at the graphs, it hopping up and down, then just suddenly this nosedive down. It was very steep.
A blacker Monday than Black Monday.
Yeah, it was
Seriously.
really. So
then the Bank of Japan came back later and said, oh, well, we can't do it while the economy is unstable, so we will not raise the interest rates.
But along with that, we just recently also had a day or two where a lot of banking transactions were down.
Yep.
You could not buy and sell, so to speak, with your plastic.
Mm-hmm.
You had to pay cash for it.
Right.
So cash is still a currency for exchange.
Wise to keep
some cash at home. As Derek said, keep some beans and rice at home. You know what we find? This is a great time of year, into the summer. It's a great time of year to go and buy lots and lots of charcoal.
Oh, yeah.
If you have a charcoal grill and they're cheap, you can buy one for $30.
Mm-hmm.
Then you've got a means of cooking.
Yeah. If power goes out.
You've got a means of cooking. If you've got water, something to cook it in, and your beans, you can eat.
We've got several great big bags of charcoal. Probably need to get a couple more just to have it around.
Have lots of salt.
Yep. So there was that, and that just suggests that the global economy being credit-based, the wealth accumulation we've seen worldwide since the 90s, really, with Greenspan, who really started pushing interest rates to unnaturally low levels, is based on credit. And United States, we just hit an all-time record here in the most recent quarter for credit card debt. I forget the number. It's like 1.4 trillion in credit card debt, which is just insane.
Mm-hmm.
But since COVID, we've been putting more and more stuff. I think 30% of Americans used their credit cards to buy groceries over the past year, which is a bad thing. It is a house of cards. It is not a good thing.
It's a bad thing, but I think some people are in a position where they have no choice.
That is true, and I think you're right about that. And while that's going on, at the same time, Breitbart reported, or Daily Mail reported, that major U.S. banks, Chase, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, together closed more than 30 locations in the U.S. during a 2-week period, the last 2 weeks of July. Interesting. 33 banks in all between July 14th and July 28th.
Yeah.
Bank of America closed 11. Chase and PNC closed 7 each. But, and it's not like Bank of America is going out of business. They've still got 3,800 branches open across the country. But during the first half of the year, something like 534 bank branches across the country have been closed because banks are recognizing that we're doing more online banking than we used to. Rather than going to the bank physically to cash checks or whatever, we're doing a lot more virtual transactions. But it's also pushing us towards the central bank digital currency.
Yes.
Ultimately. Yeah,
and that is where we're going.
That is where we're going. And if the mark of the beast isn't a CBDC, it's going to look a lot like a CBDC.
Very much so. And that is that black horse on the black, the rider on the black horse.
Yeah.
It isn't a black horse on a rider. That would make no sense whatsoever.
No.
But the rider with the scales, which is just a Zygos. It's ZYGOS. It's a way to yoke.
Right, it's the yoke. Yeah. 1.14 trillion, not 1.4 trillion. That was close, but that's a lot.
A lot.
Yeah.
By the way, shout out to Carol, a wonderful person who has ordered this June, July, and August special from us. You can pay by check. Did you know that, everybody? You can send in a check. Well, Carol, we got your check, and we just want to let you know that your order will go out on Monday.
Yes.
So Saturday is not a good day to get to the post office.
Yeah, here in the Ozarks,
Monday works.
Banks close very early on Saturday.
Banks and
post offices close early on Saturdays here.
Yep.
Question.
Yep.
came in from the app. Please get our app, gilberthouse.org/app.
Please
you can interact with us through the community section there, the messaging section. This is from Jan. Good morning. Still trying to figure out what the little g gods do. They are real in heaven, but are the spirits here on earth? They can't make the seas roar. Only God can control the weather. Thank you. What do the little g gods do?
I mean, what powers do they have?
What powers do they have, I assume?
Well, okay. Let's take a look at some of the powers that the loyal angels have.
Mm-hmm.
They can bind Satan.
Yeah.
They can bind, according to the first Enoch, they can bind Azazel or Azazel.
Mm-hmm.
They can hold back the winds.
Yeah, and didn't we, let's see, we were looking at Revelation 18 or 19 the other day, and there was an angel who was in charge of fire?
Yes, there are angels in charge of fires, of fire, it's the element. There are angels who have permission to alter the what climate, if you want to say, on the earth because they're pouring blood upon the waters.
Mm-hmm.
They're leading to stars falling from heaven. They announce those things. So they have powers in heaven.
Mm-hmm.
So why would they not have powers over things here on the earth? With the Lord's permission.
Right.
In other words, the Lord doesn't stop them.
Mm-hmm.
Because the Lord allows them to play out their little plots and plans. Now, he will stop it, and he laughs at their plans. But if your question is, are there demons of everything?
Mm-hmm.
Are there fallen angels behind everything? No. A lot of things that happen on earth with regard to climate simply happen because that's the way the Lord designed our world.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, a hurricane. That is a consequence of particular types of fronts that come together that can be caused by the Lord because he is the Lord of whirlwinds.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, he can cause those things. So is it possible that one of the watchers is able to? Another thing is there are demons or entities that are in charge of lightning. Barad.
Barad?
And Barak.
Barat would be hail.
That's right.
Yeah.
Barad and hail.
Yeah.
So you've got hail, lightning, fire.
Well, in Psalm, I'm going to have to look it up, Psalm 74, I think it is, where Moses was retelling the story of how God delivered them from Egypt. And
let's not forget that the magicians in Egypt turned the Nile to blood.
Right. That was God defeating Leviathan. Psalm...
Or was it blood?
78.
Was that the one that they couldn't do, turning the Nile to blood? But they mimicked Moses's miracles.
Right.
So they had some power behind them.
Yeah. And in fact, upcoming episode of Iron and Myth on A View from the Bunker. This will be up next week, Sunday. Judd Burton, Brian Godawa, Doug Van Dorn, and I talked about some of these demonic entities in the Old Testament and the names that they had, which appear to relate to the powers that they were given. We talked about Lilith, the demonic spirit or fallen angel who was believed to cause the death of young children. But in Psalm 78, beginning at verse 48, 47, he destroyed their vines with hail. This is Moses talking about the Egyptians, and their sycamores with frost. He gave over their cattle to the hail, that's Barad, and their flocks to thunderbolts. And that word is Reshephim. Now, Resheph was a fallen angel. He was the guardian deity, the patron deity of Pharaoh Amenhotep II, who was the Pharaoh of the Exodus.
Called Apollo in Greek.
Apollo in Greek, right. He was the plague god, but also it was believed that he spread plague with his arrows, which in this context were likened to thunderbolts. And Reshephim, being plural, makes you wonder, is that a class of angel? And there was...
That's a good question.
Yeah, well, there's a text, or rather an inscription that was found at the Lebanese city of Sidon, the Phoenician city of Sidon. describing 1/4 of that city as the land of the Reshefs, plural. So it may be that...
and what you read was the Lord gave them over to.
Gave them over to. And then he adds this in verse 49, which is really interesting. He let loose on them his burning anger, wrath, indignation, and distress, a company of destroying angels.
Ooh.
So this would appear to indicate that they have power that is allowed by God.
The loyal ones do it with his permission. The rebels think that they're doing it on their own as a rebellious act. But the Lord allows it.
Yes.
Because he uses that pressure, that event, to try to get humans trying to get your attention. Listen to him while he's whispering. Don't wait for him to shout. When I'm trying to get Glory's attention, Glory, Glory, Glory.
Yeah.
Then I have to yell really loud after about the 10th glory. Don't wait till the Lord's shouting it.
Yeah. Well, yes, tomorrow morning, Gilbert House Fellowship, our Bible study. Tomorrow evening, a view from the bunker. Guest is Troy Anderson. He's got a new book that's going to make some heads explode.
Yes, they will.
The Trump Code.
Yeah. That book is selling really, really well. He's a great researcher, great writer. I can't wait to read it.
Yeah.
I've not read it yet.
It's still available for pre-sale. It's not going to be out till September 17th. So it's not available yet, but it is. He goes in some directions you wouldn't expect. He's not arguing that Donald Trump is necessarily sent by God to save us, but what he's suggesting is that there's some very strange synchronicities with Trump and some things that have come out in the past, like the Baron Trump novels from the 1890s by an attorney named Ingersoll Lockwood.
Yeah, those are actually discussed when Trump ran before.
Yeah. So it's liable to make some heads explode. Troy is already a best-selling author, co-author of books with Paul McGuire, with Paul Begley, with Colonel David Giammona, and this one he's writing on his own. But also Nikola Tesla comes into it as well.
Oh yes, well Nikola Tesla's going to come into the Red Wing saga.
Oh,
how could I not write him in? For goodness sake!
Well, then you got to bring in Dr. John Trump, Donald's uncle, who was sent by the FBI to go through Tesla's papers after he passed in 1947.
Yeah, 47. A lot of things happened in 47.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's going to be. Speaking of Iron and your VFTB, when you do Iron and Myth next time, when you record it, ask that question: what powers do demons and angels have?
That would, we kind of touched on that and discussed that. You can, by the way, there's a playlist of the YouTube videos of all the Iron and Myth programs.
You finally got to Nephilim a couple of times.
Yeah, just recently. Yeah, that was episode 31.
Oh, it's 13 backwards. So, well done.
Yeah, so episode 32 coming up deals with... so
33 is going to be what?
33. Yeah, 33 is good. We're going to talk about Mount Hermon because it's on the 33rd parallel.
Oh, perfect. Yeah. Perfect. Well done. Well, speaking of glory, she and Grace are inside the house, and I have no idea what they're up to.
Well, we better go find out. So until next time, I'm Derek Gilbert.
I'm Sharon Gilbert, and for Grace and Glory, of course, we love you. Bye-bye, everybody.
PID Radio is produced by Gilbert House and released under Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives 4.0 International License. Follow us online, Twitter @PID Radio, or the PID Radio page at Facebook. Join us each week for our online Bible study, the Gilbert House Fellowship, online at gilberthouse.org.